Well, hello everybody and welcome to Chef's Baking Blog. Today I'm going to make some focaccia bread. So this is going to be a dried herb and powdered garlic focaccia. So those ingredients are going to go into the dough to make the focaccia. And then on the top I'm just going to grate some parmesan to give it a little bit of a cheesy flavour as well. It's actually quite a simple recipe, but it takes a long time. It takes 2 hours to proof the dough for the first time, or about 2 hours anyway, and then another hour to proof it again later once it's been shaped, and then you have to bake it. And of course before all of that you have to actually make the dough. So I'll go straight onto the ingredients, and for this I have 600 grams, which is 4 cups based on scooping packed flour into a 250 milliliter cup of bread flour. I have 20 grams, 1.5 tablespoons of caster sugar or granulated sugar. I have 7 grams, 1 packet of instant yeast. Then I have 150 millilitres, half a cup plus 2 tablespoons of milk, which is just about room temperature. And I have 290 millilitres, which is 1 cup plus 3 tablespoons plus a teaspoon of water, again at room temperature. I have 65 millilitres, which is 1/4 cup plus 1 teaspoon of olive oil. Then I have 2 grams, which is 2 teaspoons of dried mixed herbs, and I have 6 grams, which is 1.5 teaspoons of garlic powder or garlic granules. And then here I have I have Parmesan cheese, and how much I use depends on what I think as I'm grating it, just enough to cover the top, but it might be 25 grams or so, something like that. And I also have here 15 grams, which is 2.5 teaspoons of salt. So that's all the ingredients, and what we need to do now is to make our dough. And I'm going to use my stand mixer to do that. And I'm going to put into the stand mixer my flour, and then I'm going to add in the sugar and the yeast, and I'm also going to add in my dried herbs and my garlic powder. I'm just going to give those a quick mix around. And then I'm going to use my paddle attachment to start with. I'm just going to mix those for a few seconds to get the ingredients incorporated together. And that's good like that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pour my milk into my water and the oil as well. And I'm going to add that into the flour mixture, mixing on a low speed just until it becomes a shaggy dough. And that's actually good like that, and that's taken no more than a minute basically. So I'm just going to scrape that off the paddle, and I'm going to change the paddle for my dough hook. And with my dough hook on, I'm going to knead this on a medium speed for 15 minutes. And after about a minute or so, I'm going to add in the salt and keep kneading for the 15 minutes until I get a stretchy and tacky dough. So I just continue, just sprinkle my salt in and continue kneading for the 15 minutes. So I've kneaded that for 15 minutes and it's tacky, as I said it would be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that out onto a floured work surface. And so that's on the work surface, and I'm going to flour my hands as well. Just sprinkle a bit of flour on the top. And I'm going to stretch that over on itself. Like that. I'm going to do it a few more times, just to get a little bit of tension in the dough. Like that. And then I'm going to form it into a ball again, trying to create a little bit of tension in the dough. And that's good like that. And so I'm going to put that into a lightly greased bowl, and I'm going to put it in top side down first of all, and then I'll turn it over. That's so that I get the surface coated in some oil as well. And I'm going to cover that with plastic wrap. And I'm going to leave that in a warm place for it to proof until it's doubled in size, and that might take about 2 hours. It depends on the temperature in the kitchen, of course. But once it's doubled in size, I'll come back and we'll then be ready to put it into our pan. And for that, I'm going to use rather a large pan, which I think is, in fact, I'll measure it. 16 inches, 40 centimetres by 12.5 inches, 32 centimetres. So that's going to be large enough for this amount of dough. If you don't have a pan that size, you can divide the dough in two and put it into 2 smaller pans. You just need to make sure that it has a rim all the way around the edge, because we're going to put some olive oil in the pan before we put the dough in, and we don't want that running everywhere. So I'll be back when this is proofed for a couple of hours and doubled in size, and we're then going to go on and shape our dough. So my focaccia dough has now doubled in size, and so this is what it looks like. And I have my pan here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some olive oil into the pan, and I'm going to brush it all over. And then I'm going to tip my dough into that. Like that. And I'm going to knock the air out, and I'm going to push it out until it covers the entire surface of the pan. And if it doesn't quite work without springing back, then I will just leave it for a few minutes, maybe 5 minutes, and then return to it and stretch it a little bit further. And that's good enough like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover that with plastic wrap once again. Like that. And I'm going to leave that for another hour to proof for a second time. And as that hour comes to an end, I'm going to preheat my oven to 180 degrees Celsius, that's 160 Celsius with a fan, 350 Fahrenheit. And then I'll come back, we'll make some holes or dimples in the dough, cover it with oil, grate some parmesan and bake it. So it's now been an hour and my dough has rested. I've preheated my oven. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put some oil on my hands and just rub it in or rub it over. And then I'm going to use the hands to make holes in the dough, or dimples in the dough should I say, all over the surface like that. That's good. And then I'm going to grate some parmesan over the top. And how much you would use of the parmesan is entirely up to you. It's a matter of personal taste. So I'm just going to grate it. I think that's enough for me. And then I'm going to drizzle some oil over the top as well. Like that. And I'm going to put that into the oven. And I'm going to bake it for 35 to 40 minutes until it's risen up a little bit and the top has gone a nice golden brown. I'll take it out of the oven, transfer it to a wire rack to cool, and then I'll come back and we'll have a taste of it. So I baked the dry herb focaccia for 35 minutes and I tested it with my internal thermometer, and the temperature was about 98 degrees Celsius, which is over 200 Fahrenheit, so I knew that it was baked through. So I took it out of the oven and I've now sliced it or cut it, and this is what it looks like. And it's baked up very nicely, and as you can see it's nice and soft with a slight crisp to the crust, which will also soften as it cools completely. It's still just a little bit warm. So I'll have a taste of the piece that I've been eating. The first thing to say is that it does have a wonderful texture, nice and soft, just like I think focaccia should be, firm on the outside but soft inside. And I can taste the herbs and I can taste the garlic and just a little bit of the cheese. But as I said, the amount of cheese you put on and actually the type of cheese you put on is probably up for grabs. You can use as much or as little of whatever you want, basically. So this actually is a very simple recipe, although it does take time. And if you don't have a pan as large as I have, you can make a smaller version, or you can use 2 baking sheets or something. But that's going to be it for this recipe. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, please give me the thumbs up below and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the top right hand corner of the screen there will be an eye that you can click on, and that will take you to a link for the recipe, and I'll put a link below the video as well. And I'll be back with another recipe in the very near future. So until then, happy baking.